Has Steppin with Marcus J. Yeah, he's a LeBron fan and not a Yankees fan. Coming out of break, I think we might have had a hot mic during most of that break, so they listeners got an idea of what we do during breaks, and complete with Jay Grizzy using certain words that we would never use on the air. But that's all right. It's cool because I use them words too. I just don't use them on the air. Have Steppin with Marcus J. It's time to move into the National Basketball Association. As I mentioned before, that is not the music for the National Basketball Association.
It just sounds funny to say.
I mean, you know, that is not the music. On the brain.
Hey man, y'all just gave a loser $55 million.
So we move on to the basketball. We got Miami Heat fan joining us. We got JR, of course, who is going to be with us tonight for the duration of the show. And then last week, of course, the streak was ended in Chicago. Depleted Chicago team that was sans Joakim Noah, and of course, sans Derrick Rose, who I don't think anybody thinks that he's going to play this season. I'm going to come back to the fact that he's not putting his all out for his team. He could play tomorrow, but he's not. We'll come back to that in a minute. What's your thoughts, man? Your team lost the...
As far as the streak ended, I'm kind of glad the streak ended. One, because you get back to focusing on basketball. You're not focusing on the streak. And the only thing that really matters is the trophy at the end of the season. So, ain't nobody really messing with them. And the San Antonio Spurs got smacked. Anybody can beat anybody. So the Bulls loss don't really count. If you got lost 2 points, they don't ask you how They don't ask you how you win. They ask you did you win.
Yeah, they won by 2 points, but they also
team's duty every day.
Yeah, but they also
that's what I told somebody when them Celtics won last.
But
week.
They also won without LeBron and without Dwayne Wade, and they played and they played their game with a depleted Miami Heat team, and they still go out and they beat one of the best teams in the league, who was at near full strength. Of course, they lost Ginobili, who's going to probably be out at least until the early part of the playoffs, Big Rube. So I don't think that you should discount the fact that the team won the game without their best, probably the best play. I've already said LeBron's best play I've ever seen in my life. But, you can argue that. Mm-hmm. Definitely the best player in the league today, but for potentially some Kobe fans out there. So I don't think that you can discount the fact that they went out and they beat the Spurs. JR, you gonna attack them? Or
I'm gonna say this. You a Lakers fan?
He a Lakers fan.
Lakers fan.
He's
right. So what is Kobe doing these days? That's what I want to know. I just want to ask you, what is Kobe doing?
Talking retirement.
Using Carlton Banks logic. How many rings y'all got?
It don't matter.
Oh, it does matter.
It does, really, because what you doing on court this season?
Hey, I'm using Banks logic. That's what Banks tells us when we talk about the Cowboys.
So you going with a Cowboy fan logic? You reaching now, bro.
I can tell you what Kobe's doing.
It's like this. I can tell you
what Kobe's doing. He's loaning me Vanessa for the summer.
Here we go.
First of all,
Kobe and Vanessa.
Hey, look.
First of all, look.
All jokes aside, though, the Lakers, they maybe get one win in the playoffs if they make it. They maybe get one, and the reason I say they get one is the Memphis Grizzlies went and traded away everything they had. So
we're not gonna.
So we're gonna give them one.
Here's the thing, real talk. This isn't the Lakers' fault that we suck this year. It's not the players' fault. It is management. I mean, you fire your first coach 5 games into the season, really. Then, of course, nobody likes to hear it. The interim, which is the assistant coach, comes in and goes 4-1. Now, real talk, I don't know if we should have Bernie Bickerstaff coach the whole year either. However, he's better than the other 2 tools we had. And then you get an inferior coach who was ran out of New York. And then comes to, man, I would have rather stuck with Bernie Bickerstaff. Man, this season I blame the season on management because let's be honest, their stupidity cost the Lakers possibly a playoff run, a playoff berth, because you can see and say, well, the players play on the court. When it's all said and done, if you don't have everything lined up correctly, and because you can see it as Miami Heat fans, you can see it and say Pat Riley is 95% of the reason why y'all won the championship last year. Don't sit here and tell me when LeBron, who put them together? Pat Riley.
Players got to play though.
Man, whatever, man. Don't give me that. Don't give me that. Every team, the teams that win championships is because their front office is beast.
That's part of the reason.
No, that's the main reason. The players still got to play. Tell me.
Dallas Mavericks, Miami Heat 2 years ago. Players got to play.
I mean, the Mavericks, their front office was beast that year. He got everything he needed, and they had the skills and the talent to beat the Heat. But you name me one NBA championship whose front office sucked. It was just terrible.
Let me jump in here because you're both right, and it's an argument that neither one of you is ever going to win because, as JR stated, the players have to play. The Dallas Mavericks team that won was a destiny team. You had players on that team that had been in the league for a long time who it was just their time to win with Dirk Nowitzki, Jason Kidd, and Jason Terry. You had guys on that team that just had to win. And the Miami Heat team came in just a little bit too cocky, expecting that the win was going to be there for them. And they had a team that was like, nah, we ain't going for that. And they smacked them. And that's how that happened. But Big Rube is right in the sense that as a Knicks fan, I could tell you that the front office can either make you or break you. When I've got a history in the last 12 years with players like Howard Isley and Shandon Anderson and Clarence Weatherspoon and Jerome James and Eddie Curry, I could go on. I could tell you that Shandon Anderson just came off the cap just about 3 or 4 years ago, and Howard Isley is coaching somewhere in the league, and we just got finished paying him a couple of years ago. So, yeah, I could tell you that when you got a guy like Scott Layden and Isaiah Thomas, Dave Checkett's running your front office, yeah, you're gonna have some issues as opposed to Don Nelson, not Donnie. Donnie's the son. Don Nelson running Dallas, and Pat Riley, of course, running Miami. So yeah, Mitch Kupchak, I think he made a mistake bringing in. I think he made a mistake. I think his first mistake was first hiring Mike Brown, and then his second mistake was firing Mike Brown. Because I think that if he really stuck it out there, he could have found a better coach. Mike Brown was made to look good because he had LeBron in Cleveland. So I don't know how great a coach he was. But LeBron's gonna make anybody look really good. But I was never sold on him. But when he had an opportunity to get someone else instead of waiting for Phil, he hurriedly hired Mike D'Antoni. Again, as a Knicks fan, I could tell you all about Mike D'Antoni. This is a guy who potentially could be a good coach. He's not a great coach. He could be a good coach. The reason why he's not is because he's not flexible. He's going to do it his way, and he's not going to listen to anybody else, especially when he doesn't have the parts to go with what to go with what he wants to do. JR.
Well, I would say this too. He had the parts in Phoenix and just didn't get it done there either. So to me, after Phoenix, he was done.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes you can have the parts and not get it done.
And from what I was hearing up until the day D'Antoni was signed was that, Phil Jackson was coming back.
But see, the thing with Phil Jackson, I'm sorry to cut you off. The Phil Jackson situation became personal, and that's why it was a horrible business move because the son did not want Phil Jackson back in because, let's be honest, Phil Jackson is marrying his sister who owns half of the Lakers. They basically have more power than him. It is a stupid little power struggle, and instead of worrying about winning championships and making money, he got petty, and he decided to hire probably the worst coach he probably could have hired for the Lakers.
For the Lakers.
Yes. He was by far the worst coach because, one, we're old. 2, we don't run up and down. 3, it's bad enough that we don't play good defense. Then you bring in a coach who plays no defense.
Right.
Oh, hell. I mean, they was just like, yeah, we just never playing defense now. And we got destroyed on. I mean, when you start losing to people like the freaking Penguins the Pelicans. And freaking Charlotte, almost losing to Charlotte, man. When we started,
are we calling them the Pelicans now? Did we officially go to the Pelicans
next year?
No, I think it's the Hornets right now.
It's the Hornets, but I could care less because they suck. But when we started losing to teams like that, or going down to a wire with teams like that, it's not the players can only do so much. But if you don't put them in the right positions, I don't care if you got the superstar team of the world. they're not going to play well. AKA, freaking New England Patriots.
Right.
They had a superstar team last year. Freaking Baltimore came up and just said, yeah, we're going to beat you in your own house. And then turn around and beat San Francisco. Really, San Francisco should have won. That was an NFC game, and they were beating the tar out of San Francisco until the mysterious power outage. Because it's always got some crap's got to happen. It's stuff like that where, you know what? If the Lakers do make the playoff, which I believe they will, we will get San Antonio probably in the first round. I would much rather see San Antonio than the Thunder. Hell no.
You don't want to play the Thunder. And you know who else you don't want to play? You don't want to play Denver because they will run you out
Denver
of the
has no chance.
Denver looks scary.
Denver has no chance of getting to the first or second tier, so I don't care. I'm looking at the Thunder.
The team that just
and the
won
Spurs.
15 straight games, you said they have no chance.
They play the Lakers. They do.
No, they don't have a chance to get a 1 or 2 seed.
The seed.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Man, I'm not worried about them. I'm worried about who we're going to probably play.
I misunderstood.
I want us to get a strong 8 seed or 7 seed. Wherever the Thunder's not, that's where I want to be.
Yeah, but
Because
wherever the Thunder is not is where the Spurs will be.
we have a much better chance of beating the Spurs because, one, they don't run as much, and they're practically the same age.
They play a similar game to the
How much
Lakers.
does it make the
They
playoffs?
just play it better.
Correct.
How much
Okay.
that just make the playoffs?
I mean, if we're going to make the playoffs, the Utah thing
Yeah, they'll make the
annoys
playoffs.
me,
They'll make
but
the
we'll
playoffs.
make the playoffs. Kobe will will them to make the playoffs.
Speaking of Kobe, I did want to bring up the fact that over the weekend, Kobe has moved to 4th place in the all-time scoring list, passing former Laker and Philadelphia Sixer Will Chamberlain for 4th place. He now trails only Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, who has over 38,000, Karl Malone with almost 37,000, and Michael Jordan at 32 and some change. Kobe with just over 31,000 points, of course, passed Wilt Chamberlain over the weekend, having passed Shaquille O'Neal last year for 5th place, and now he's passed Wilt for 4th place. So I'm going to come to everybody. I'm going to start with you, Carlton, on this one. Kind of talk a little bit about legacy now. You got a lot of people who don't like Kobe because Kobe's kind of an aloof type of person. He had the issue in Colorado. There's a lot of reasons for contemporary folks to not like Kobe Bryant, but forgetting all of that, if we keep it on the court, can we now say that but for Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant is the second greatest shooting guard in the history of the National Basketball Association?
If you take in consideration that he's been in the league his entire adult life, then there's nothing else you can say. I mean, he's been in the league 17 years. How many players can be in any sport for 17 years? Wear and tear. Shut up, Ruben. Give me my shot. Give me my moment. You're in the league 17 years. You had to be able to do something. Yeah, you had your off games. You had your great games. You had your intermediate games. Is he the second greatest shooting guard, you said?
Shooting guard.
Yeah.
That's the position he plays.
Yeah. He's the second greatest shooting guard, but he's still not in my top 10. So
Yeah. Well,
Because something's wrong with your damn top 10.
yeah, something's wrong with his top 10. But Big Rube, we know that's your team. I'll come to you in a minute. I'm going to actually save you for last because it's your team, Grizz. I'm going to come to you now with Kobe, of course, being 4th in the all-time scoring list. The only people he trailed is a center, a power forward, and Michael Jordan at shooting guard, which is the same position that he plays.
Right.
What's Kobe's legacy looking like these days?
Now, everybody know I'm a Kobe unabashed hater. I'm going to be on the record for it. But the way you pose the question, I mean, you have to answer it like, yeah, he number 2 behind Jordan. You got to give him that. Maybe Oscar Robertson, he paid the 2-3 position a little bit. But, yeah, I got to give it to him. But, I mean, I don't have to like it. And like Carlton said, and, I mean, it's just one position out of 5 positions on the court. Kobe's still a punk.
JR, what's your thoughts, man?
Hey, I don't like Kobe, but you got to respect his game. So, I mean, I give it to him. I give it to him. Until LeBron score more, which he will, because, he's just better.
Well, I'm gonna say this because Big Rube, this is his team, so I'm gonna let him get the last word on Kobe before we move on. I am not a Kobe fan. I'm not a Kobe hater either, but I also like to watch good basketball. And but for Michael Jordan, I think that he is probably the greatest 2 guard in the league. And I think I don't like to get into comparing guys to each other. Saying saying that, this guy is the next this guy. A lot of people wanted to tag Kobe with being the next Michael Jordan. No, he's the first Kobe Bryant. I personally, if I had a choice between Kobe and Michael Jordan, I would close my eyes, flip a coin, and whichever one ended up falling down would be the one that I took. I mean, one guy's got 31,000 points. The other guy's got 32,000 points. One guy's got 6 chips. The other guy's got 5 chips. So, I mean, I think you're playing semantics. Now, Michael never lost the finals, and we know that Kobe did. So if you want to go there, I guess you could go there. Michael left the game for a year and a half and came back and was great again. So if you want to have those be your tiebreakers, I understand that. But, I mean, really, I think that anybody who doesn't look at Kobe being Bryant and not see one of the greatest players in the history of this game, I think you're being blind, and then you're being disingenuous, which is just as bad as me calling LeBron the fraud and me calling Michael Jordan number 45. I do that tongue-in-cheek. I do it tongue-in-cheek, but I also know what I'm looking at, and I know we're talking about two great.
You're so honest, man.
Well, I gotta be. Big Rube, that's your player on your team. You watched him since he got traded for Vlade Divac in 1996.
Really? You just do Vlade like that? Yeah.
I say he got traded.
The greatest flopper of all time.
He got traded for Vlade Divac in 1996 when he got drafted by Charlotte and traded from Charlotte, the Hornets at the time, to the Los Angeles Lakers. Fresh-faced 18-year-old kid, Kobe Bean Bryant. You watched his entire career. What's your thoughts on the question that's on the table? Today, please.
Today?
Yes, please.
Oh, of course.
Because
there's so many things I can say about it.
He always like to ponder the question, man. It's radio, man. You don't ponder the question on radio.
It's not pondering, it's posturing.
But it's like this.
Yeah, that too.
It's like this. Kobe Bryant is probably the second best shooting guard of all time until he passes Jordan next year. Then, unfortunately, you kind of have to give him credit for being the best. Now, with that being said, I had to interrupt you, Banks. With that being said, I agree with Marcus J. Flip a coin. You take either one. Me, I would trade. If I got Jordan, I'd trade it for Kobe. That's just personal. I think that Kobe now, at the age of 34, is doing way more than Jordan did at 34. I mean, the dude is straight up dunking on people. Not just flying. He's just jump up and dunk it. At 34, Michael wasn't really doing that. Michael was more on the jump shots. That sort of thing.
Michael always took what you gave him.
Yeah.
I'm not going to let you do that.
But
I'm not going to let you do that.
But when he was older, he didn't dunk as much, nor could he dunk straight up.
Because his game matured.
Yeah, his game changed. I mean, it's not because he couldn't, it's because he didn't.
Okay.
It's the difference between couldn't and
Fine,
don't.
whatever.
Yeah, you being
being what?
A bad word.
I stand.
Now, with that being said,
Yes.
you can call him the best small forward, shooting guard. You can call him the second best shooting guard. He's still one of the top 5 NBA players ever.
Let me say this. I could never give him or LeBron number one. Ever.
LeBron plays
and reason being is both of their games are too closely modeled after Jordan's game. And when you have somebody who comes in the league and kind of creates a style, and then all these other guys come after them and take that style to the next level, props to them for doing that. But the duplicator can never be greater than the original.
I understand what you're saying, but the only devil's advocate that I'll play is that there are some people who would say that Jordan modeled his game after Dr. J.
Yeah.
I knew he was going
Dr. J,
Yeah.
and if you go a little further back, the big old Oscar Robertson. Now, all of us in this room are too young to remember Oscar Robertson play, but we also know from history, because from studying the game, this dude was a walking triple-double. He averaged a triple-double as a rookie. Right. You know what I mean? And a lot of people say that Michael, modeled his game after that. But I understand where you're coming from. I do tend to agree with you. But I will say this, again, I feel awkward, kind of defending LeBron James. When I look at him, I mean, this is my opinion, and I know I catch flack for this. People disagree with me, and I felt this way last year before when I was calling him out his name. But when I look at him, I see, in my opinion, the greatest basketball player ever, personally. My personal opinion. A lot of that has to do with what he's done, but most of it has to do with what he is capable of doing and what I project him out to do. It's somewhat like when Shaquille O'Neal was added to the 50 greatest players of all time in 1997 when he had only been in the league for 5 years. 1997, 50 greatest players of all time, and you add a guy that's been in the league for 5 years. Now, in 2013, we realized that they got it right by adding him. But at the time, it was like, yo, I mean, I can see being a Dominique Wilkins fan, and he's my favorite player of all time, regardless of him never having worn a Knicks uniform. He's my favorite player of all time, and I was pissed he wasn't on the list. But he didn't deserve to be on the list. Right. Shaquille O'Neal deserved to be on the list. So this is the reason why I feel comfortable and steadfast in my belief that LeBron James is and will be, when it's over, the greatest basketball player in the history of the game. That's how I feel.
He should be. The biggest thing I would say, like you say, you model your game after whoever, yada, yada, yada. You look at all three men, Jordan, Kobe, and LeBron, they're all different. You have Jordan, who was a little bit slender, but he still had power. And he could move quick, and he elevate to the basket. And eventually, later on, he gained a three-point jumper. You have Kobe, who is a little bit bigger. He's a little bit stronger than Jordan. However, he honed his jumper early in his career, and he can still go forward and bash it.
But you got to also remember that Kobe came into the league 3, 4, 5 years younger than what Mike was. When Mike came into the Mike did 3 years of college. So he at least had that 3-year, jump. And, Mike came in the league. Mike just turned 50. And he came in the league in 1984. Yeah. So he came in at 21. Kobe came in at 18. So
but going back to my point, then you have LeBron, who came in the league at 18. The dude's a brick house, man. He was that way when he came into the league, and now it's even worse. And now the fact that he is learning how to use his body in a positive way on the court makes him even more deadly. You're right. He is probably going to be the best player that we ever see in our lifetime and stuff like that. However, right now, you can't give LeBron that due. I can give LeBron top 10 on my list. I can't give him top 5 simply because of chips. That's it. For me, you got to win more than one chip to get in my top 5.
Well, who's in your top 5? So everybody in your top 5 has more than one chip.
Oh, everybody in my top 5 has multiple chips, yes.
Okay.
Is Shaq in it?
No.
Why? Shaq has more than one
because
chip.
Shaq's not in my top 5.
Yeah.
I'm just curious.
Kareem's in my top 5.
He's basing it off chips.
No, I'm not basing it off chips. I'm basing it off your overall career. However, chips are important. Robert Ory's not in my top 10. He's got 6.
You got Wilt in there?
No.
I think Kareem's the best center ever.
Kareem to me is by far.
He leads a billion points.
Maybe you're not a historian.
Just because Wilt scored 100 points in the game.
No, it's not that.
No.
100.
But you're not going to say it. Tell me.
A lot of points, though.
It is.
I understand what you're saying, but Wilt dominated. He was a man amongst boys, and he dominated so much during that era that you had.
They changed the game because of that.
Here's the thing. I understand where you're going.
Plus, he hit 30,000 bribes.
I'm gonna make this point real quick, Big Rube. Go ahead and jump on my comment after this. But I think the thing with Wilt, where people historically kind of want to romanticize a guy that was 7'2" that played against a bunch of guys that was 6'9".
Yeah.
And through it all, he only came out with 2 chips.
Yep.
When Bill Russell at 6'9/10 came out with more rings than fingers. So, he had 11. So, I get the Wilt thing, and Wilt was Shaq before Shaq. I get all that.
Wilt's a sexy pick.
He's the pick that people make when, with respect to Grizzy, I think Wilt is a lazy pick, personally. I just do. I think it's too easy. I think it's too easy because, again, he was 7'2". He was bigger than every single person that he played. But you know what? If you asked Will in an honest moment prior to his death in 1999, he would tell you that the hardest player to play was Bill Russell, who was a good 4 or 5 inches shorter than him. It is what it is. So we want to go ahead and end this segment with a little bit of Knicks talk because we do need to move on. The Knicks move to 8 straight games that they've won. They currently have the longest win streak in the National Basketball Association, and that win streak is going to be tested tomorrow night in Miami when they play against the Miami Heat.
Yes, sir.
They played a couple of good games. A lot of the games that they've played have been against what I guess some would say subpar competition, but at the end of the day, you got to play who's in front of you. They got a couple of wins against Toronto. They got a couple of big wins against Boston, and we'll see. They got a big win against Memphis, a get back win. I remember when they played Memphis in Memphis for their first loss of the season. I was in the building with K-Dub, and they bust that ass. And the one thing about the Knicks is, at least particularly earlier in the season, if you played them physical and you rattle them, you can get under their skin and you could potentially get them off their game. A lot of that has been alleviated by the acquisition of Kenyon Martin. I remember coming in here at the time and saying that was a big deal. I remember being met with the gas face, particularly by Big Rube, who looked at me like, really, Kenyon Martin is going to save your season? But the thing that you didn't understand or disagree with about Kenyon Martin was that he brought to the Knicks what the Knicks didn't have. And that was a guy in the middle who was like, look, you ain't coming in here. I'll give you 6 fouls, but I'm also going to make sure that you think about it before you come in here. The Knicks didn't have nobody as good as a defensive player as Tyson Chandler is. He's just not that kind of player. Right. He's not a nasty kind of player. When I'm listening to Clyde Frazier and Mike Breen and Spiro Ditas calling Knick games, and they're talking about the fact that when he's blocking shots, he should try to block them into play, so that they can get the tip, as opposed to blocking it so aggressively that it's going in the 10th and 15th row. This is the kind of player that the Knicks haven't had on their squad probably since the Anthony Mason days. Right. You know what I mean? Xavier McDaniels, Anthony Mason, Charles Oakley, cats like that, Gris. So I personally am somewhat surprised that he stayed at home all that time, but they're saying that it might have been a reputation thing. But now it's not so much. The Knicks fans are chanting Kenyon Martin. What's your thoughts, man?
Man, you said it in the shows leading up to today. We get on Big Rube for his knowledge of Knicks basketball, being a Laker fan, but he has contributed. I saw a game. I want to say it was the Celtics, not this Celtics game last night, but the Celtics last game before that. Right. Well, we had literally 4 guys, 6'5" and below, plus 1 center, plus Carmelo. That was it. And we kind of put the boost to him. So to have Kenyon Martin, 6'8", 6'9", or whatever, to come in and when we can play that small lineup and be effective is tremendous. And then talking about the Miami game, I hope LeBron and Dwayne Wade is still hurt, But because we got a lot to prove. Hopefully they'll play. If they don't, oh well. It's like I don't think the standards are going to change that much over the next week and a half. We want to continue to have that 2 or 3 seed, preferably the 2. And we're going to see Miami because honestly, the Bulls showed last week what it takes to beat Miami. If anybody's seen that game, you have to be physical with them, a la the late '90s Knicks or even the mid '90s Knicks. When you played. When you play Miami and when you play Chicago, you got to get those players. You got to play physical with them because, granted, it's almost admitting that, hey, LeBron is the best player in the game right now. So the only way to stop him down, to stop him, is to catch him with a nice short Benoit clothesline.
Well, and you saw what happened last week.
Yeah.
He caught that short Benoit clothesline in the game and in the post game. And he didn't complain like he was making an excuse, but he did make a point of mentioning how physical Chicago was being with them. And I don't recall hearing any chatter about physical play during the 27-28 game win streak or whatever it was. So, JR, I know that's your team. Of course, I don't want to make this about Miami. Miami had their time, but we'll make it more about the Knicks and the Miami matchup being tomorrow. Of course, The Knicks won the first 2 meetings, which you got a lot of Knicks fans that like to make a big deal about that. I'm not one of them. You played the best team in the league at the early part of the season, so take some time sometimes to even as the good team get yourself together. Right. As you see the Knicks match up with Miami tomorrow and potentially going forward, if the Knicks and Miami each make it that far in the playoffs, what are you seeing between these 2 teams?
What I see basically, I think Knicks actually have a shot to win tomorrow. They're actually my favorite. As far as that particular game goes. The reason being is because they're riding a wave of a win streak. And to me, what they're doing, because they fell on a lull at times during the season, so I think they will want to keep this win streak going into the playoffs. You build the momentum, whereas the Heat, they've taken a loss, so now they're back to earth.
Right.
Now now they know, okay, we lost that one. Now we can get back to the type of ball that we should be playing. And as far as being physical to beat the Heat, yes and no. I mean, being physical, always. You playing a game. You got to play to win. So, that's a given. But Benoit clothesline. I mean, that's taking anybody down. But I still see the Heat with the ring.
804-402-2893. Call us up and be down with the discussion. Aint has Steppin with Marcus J. Live from the Den and LegacyInternetRadio.com. Big Rule. What's your thoughts on this, man?
I mean, I guess my thing is he obviously doesn't watch his own tapes of what he does to people. And I'm not saying that the dude is a little rough. He can't help it because he's a big dude. And it's not like he's going up against guys who are his same size, and quick. Because let's be honest, small forwards aren't as big as him. They're called small forwards for a reason. And he does body up, and he is very physical. I think it's funny when someone who is very physical receives physical, they kind of, I'm not saying he was whining, but the fact that he even mentions it, even though somebody brought it up, he could have been like, ain't no big deal.
Yeah,
but the fact that he even kind of complains about it a little bit kind of annoys me because, dude, that's your game too. When you're throwing your shoulder into somebody's chest, nobody's sitting there, wow, man, I don't appreciate the way he's throwing his shoulder in my chest. I mean, yeah, you got clothesline, I get it.
Right.
But you give as good as you get. Ask Kobe Bryant. Kobe Bryant's, against Melo.
I agree.
Yeah.
I do somewhat agree, in spite of the fact that my pronouncement of LeBron's greatness. I was somewhat taken aback by the fact that the game that they lost ended up being the game. I mentioned that he had some words, and it was some pretty aggressive fouls against him in that game in his defense.
And one of them was turned to a flagrant.
One was turned into a flagrant, but I just didn't think that was the time. Coming off of a 25, 28 game, whatever it was, win streak. I just didn't think that was the time for him to be complaining about rough or hard fouls. Now, he going to have his handful tomorrow, and I'd be interested to see in what the Knicks do with regards to defending LeBron. When you look around the team, I mean, they've got guys that they can put on Chris Bosh. I don't know that I worry so much about Chris Bosh. I mean, when you look at that team, you always got to worry about LeBron. I see the young fella Shumpert probably guarding Dwayne Wade. And then, of course, I don't know how you don't put Kenyon Martin on LeBron. But
I think they will for a little bit.
For a little while. But
he'll get 6 fouls.
But then you'll run into the fact that he'll end up potentially fouling out. So that's where you run. That's when you run into the problem. Now, what I also wanted to get into with regards to the Knicks, and we'll make this quick because we need to get out of this segment and get on to the Socially Conscious and Entertainment Hour here on Aint Steppin with Marcus J. Live from the Den, LegacyInternetRadio.com. If you want to be part of any part of our discussion, hit us up on our fan page on Facebook, Twitter, as well as hit us up by phone at 804-402-2893. But the last thing I want to get into is the stretch that J.R. Smith has been on as the sixth man for the New York Knicks. It seems to potentially be somewhat eclipsing Jamal Crawford and some of the other six men. He just was named the Eastern Conference Player of the Week. He had 3 games in a row where he scored over 30 points off the bench. First time that's happened since Ricky Pierce did it in 1990 for the Seattle Supersonics, now known as the Oklahoma City Thunder. So, I'm watching the guy, and he is an absolute enigma. He reminds me so much of John Starks because he's hot and cold. But he's so athletic. He's so much more athletic than John Starks ever was. And I think that he could potentially be the X factor, because if you figure out a way to contain, you can't shut down LeBron. Figure out a way to contain him to his 30 points or whatever he's going to get, then you get some decent defense on Dwayne Wade. Of course, Carmelo's going to do what Carmelo does. I really do believe that J.R. Smith could be the X factor. Last night, he didn't score his 30 points. It was the first game in a few. But he might decide, JR, he wants to go back on a run again tomorrow night. Have you been paying attention to what's going on in New York with their six-man?
Not particularly, but I would say like I told you out the air, I'm no Heat fan per se. I'm a LeBron fan per se. I like different players in the NBA, and J.R. Smith happens to be one of those players. I think he's a phenomenal player, and I say more props to him. Like I like basketball for the competition. I like to see what these guys bring to the table. So,
ain't no ass Steppin, Marcus J. We're going to leave it there. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we got a word from our sponsors. We got a missing child, and we got what the hell. Marcus J. Ain't no half stepping. Stay with us. We live from the den, y'all. LegacyInternetRadio.com. Hang in there. We got a little bit more some soul music for you. We'll be back in a minute.